Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome in across the continent for another very exciting Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants broadcast. Most of you are joining for the very first time today, so welcome into the show. And for those who are new to us, we are all about bringing conservation, adventure, and science into classrooms around the world. Now, everything we do goes to our YouTube channel. So if you want to check out this program or like 4,000 others in 3 weeks, in 3 years, it's all right there to explore and discover some of the coolest scientists and explorers on planet Earth. Now, before we dive in with today's topic du jour, which I'm very excited about, I want to note we do have a Kahoot. So if you want to play along with a little 4-question quiz to test your understanding and have some fun, we have a game pin right here that I will share several times in all our chats in a second for you to play along in about 25 minutes. Now, I'm so excited of all programs you're joining us for today, because today we are kicking off our epic If Then She Can collaborative series on the ambassadors of conservation. We are featuring some of the most amazing women in STEM from around the world for the 4th time with If Then She Can, one of the coolest campaigns of all time. And specifically, we're focusing on conservation, wildlife around this planet, what we're doing to understand and protect it. And we're doing this because in just 2 weeks, the World Conservation Congress is happening, the Olympics of conservation. All the nature nerds in the world, including me, are going to be in Abu Dhabi to help work to make a brighter future for wildlife. So we wanted to celebrate with our Epic Ambassador series. Check out the whole rest of it. They're all right there. This is program number 2 after this morning's program with Dr. Kristen Lear, all about bats. But we are joined again by Dr. Ronda Hamm. She is an entomologist, which means she gets to study all the creepy, crawly things in the undergrowth. Now, a lot of us might be a little skittish around bugs, but bugs are the biggest group of animals on this planet. They're one of the coolest groups of animals on this planet, and I'm so excited we get to learn all about them from a world-class expert. So, without further ado, welcome in, Dr. Hamm, and thank you for joining us again. So nice to have you back at Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants.
Thank you for having me, and thank you all for joining us today. I am so excited to get to talk to you about the wonderful, fascinating, sometimes scary, I'll even admit that, world of insects. And so my talk is titled From Fear to Fascination, Discovering Insects or Bugs. And so why fear to fascination? Because I was terrified of insects when I was a young girl. So I was scared. I did not like them. I did not want to be around them. I thought they were going to hurt me, and I just did not like them. So it took me some time. I had to discover what these insects were all about in order to discover really a fascination for them. Now I think they are the most amazing, coolest things on the planet, because they are. They're super diverse. They live in all kinds of places. The only place that they do not live is in the deep oceans. Otherwise, yes, there are insects that live in Antarctica, so you can find insects everywhere. So I think that's super cool. So without further ado, let's meet some of these insects that I want to share with you today. And let me get my computer working.
Okay. There we are. It worked in the test right before, and the moment we go live, it has a little bit of finicky. That's half the fun, I think.
Exactly. And sometimes the computers just have to wake up. So here we are. So why are insects important? They are super useful. So this is a dung beetle. They help us with poop. They are poop patrol. And so what they do is they roll that little ball of dung into, and they bury it. They lay some eggs on it. Those eggs eat that, and then they become an adult beetle. And so they are super useful for helping us do cleanup of manure of various animals and sorts. They also help us decompose trees and wood and cellulose. So these are some termites here. They also are great for feeding other animals. So this is a bluebird actually in my backyard that has a few different caterpillars in its beak to feed its young. So that's what the young birds need, plenty of calories, and insects are a major part of their diet. They also feed us. So we all love the sticky sweet honey, or at least I do. I love it in my tea. I love it on oatmeal. I have a little peanut butter ball recipe that is delicious with honey. So they make great things for us to eat. And they also make things that we can wear. So this is a silk moth. So silk comes from these moths here. So they're very useful in a variety of different ways for both our environment and us as well. They are also super unusual and interesting. So these are some of my favorites. This is a leaf insect on the bottom, the little green one, and actually the brown one as well. Those are leaf insects, and the others are stick insects. And so they are camouflaged to look like their environment so that you don't find them, so that they can escape predators and go about their business. This one on my hand actually was missing a leg. So something somewhere found it, unfortunately, but it was doing just fine. So It was wandering around in the jungle of Australia is where that one was collected. They can also be destructive though. And so this is the top picture here where it kind of looks fuzzy right here. These are some weevils that have gotten into some bird seed that I had in my garage. So they just basically destroyed that. That doesn't even, you can't tell that it's seed anymore because they've basically shredded it all up and it's very powdery now where they've gotten into it and made a mess of it. These leaves down here, those don't look so good either. Those have a bunch of damage from some caterpillars eating the holes in them. And then this is termites that are eating some wood stakes. Now, those are around a house. So you don't want them eating your wooden house or the wood parts of your house. So they can be destructive. And so that's why it's really important for us to know what kind of insects we're working with and where they live and what they're doing. They are also super amazing architects. So these critters can build this home. They can get up to 17 feet high. So that's huge. They also can regulate based on how they build their structure. They can regulate the temperature inside. So if it's too hot or too cold, they can actually regulate that. They have little storerooms in here for food and for any of their debris. So their trash, they have a trash compartment in there. So they build these little houses to accommodate all the things that they need. And they can create the environment even that they need within that tunnel or that structure. So here's a little bit of a first quiz for you. How do you know it's an insect? How many body parts are we looking for?
Let's see. You know what? We're going to head to our classes. If you're on YouTube and you want to share in the chat, we'd love to hear from you. Miss Ramos, Miss Avila, Mrs. Penfold's class. If you want to flick on your microphones, we can come to you. How many?
Or if you just want to raise your hand and
do that as well.
Tell me how many body parts do we have?
How many body parts? What do we think? Mrs. Penfold. Oh, lots of hands in Mrs. Penfold's class. What do we think? 2, a lot of 2, some 5s, some 3s. What do we think?
What do you guys think?
3.
3. I think they might be onto something.
Woohoo! You are absolutely correct. There are 3. And what are those 3? Well, you've got the head, which we all have. So we have something in common with an insect right there. We have a head. There is the thorax. And then there's the abdomen. So head, thorax, abdomen. That's the order that it goes in from the top to the bottom of the insect. And now we're going to do that again. So how many legs does an insect have?
It's on the screen.
On your fingers.
We'll count. Yep, a lot of 6. Everyone's got 6. Fantastic.
Yes.
Way to go. We can all count.
That was an easy one. Yes, there are 6 legs as well. The other things that insects have in common that I couldn't really put on a slide very easily is they have an exoskeleton. So when they grow, their skeleton is on the outside. So they have to molt in order to shed that so that they can grow. So unlike us, where our skeleton is on the inside and grows with us, theirs is on the outside. So they all have an exoskeleton. Antennae are pretty common. Sometimes they have wings, sometimes they don't. So that's kind of a tricky one with insects. Some insects have 2, some have 4, some have none. So kind of wings are a little tricky. It's not a great characteristic to identify insects, but the rest of them, these things that you see on the screen here, those are a great way to tell that you have an insect and not something else. So how do insects grow? Let's talk a little bit about metamorphosis. So there are 2 different types of metamorphosis. I'm going to start with complete metamorphosis, and that is really divided into 4 distinct life stages. So these are things like you will probably recognize this from a butterfly. Let's start with that idea. So the first stage is an egg. You get a little egg. Then you get a larva, or it's also known as a caterpillar when we're talking about butterflies and moths. And then there's a pupa, or maybe you know it as a cocoon, again, with moths and butterflies. And then the adult emerges. And so it looks very different, right? The larva and the pupa and the adult look very different in each of those stages. They're reorganizing their whole body plan. And so things that do this, the insects that do this are beetles, butterflies, bees, flies. Those all have complete metamorphosis. The other type of metamorphosis is incomplete metamorphosis. So this basically means that the young ones look like mini grown-ups. So they start with an egg, just like the other life stage or life cycle. They become nymphs. So they're not called larvae. They're called nymphs when we're talking about incomplete metamorphosis. They just look smaller, and then they become an adult when they get to a certain size. A lot of times, not always, because insects are so diverse that there's always an exception to the rule. But oftentimes when they become an adult, if they're going to get wings, that's when they get their wings. And those are grasshoppers, crickets that have that incomplete metamorphosis. Let's talk about mouthparts and how they eat. So you may have seen caterpillars, and you probably have maybe even raised some caterpillars if you've had a classroom that maybe had some caterpillars in it. And they have chewing mouthparts. So they are chewing up leaves, and that's how they feed. So their mouthparts have what we call mandibles, and they are chewing on stuff. There are piercing, sucking ones. I'm sure that anybody that's been out camping or outside in the middle of summer where there's mosquitoes has experienced piercing, sucking mouthparts. So mosquitoes are a great example of that. They bite us, but there's also stink bugs. They also have a piercing, sucking mouthpart, and they just suck the juices out of a plant instead of people. Butterflies and moths have siphoning mouthparts. So it's basically like a long straw that they curl up when they move, and then they uncurl it and they suck nectar out of flowers that way. And then one of my favorites, the housefly, has sponging mouthparts. And so sponging mouthparts are basically exactly like it says. It has a sponge on the end, and they suck stuff up through that little sponge on the end of their mouthpart. And so those are the various types of mouthparts that insects have. So why do we care about insects? Why should we study them? Why do we need entomologists in the world like me? Well, they are super important pollinators. And so pollination is how we get our food and flowers. So plants have to cross, and so they need to take pollen from one plant or one flower to another flower. And butterflies and bees and wasps and ants and beetles all do that for us, and they're very efficient at it. And so they're very good at it. And so thanks to insect pollinators, 1 in every 3 bites of food that we take has to have a pollinator involved in order for us to get that food. So I am super thankful that we have pollinators and the important role that they play. And then there's a lot of flowers that we wouldn't have as well without these pollinators. So they're super important from a conservation standpoint, not only of the insects themselves, but the plants that they help then pollinate. So you can look at conservation in multiple steps here with the insects and the flowers and plants that they pollinate. So protecting all of those species. So another reason to study insect pests, and I've done this for a number of my years in my career, is protecting our food supply. So some insects are harmful to our crops. And so we need to figure out how do we keep our food, but also keep the insects that we want. And so you can see that how damaged this collard greens is here, that they just completely devoured my leaves. This was my garden this summer. I didn't do anything to control the insects. So this is the culprit right here. This little green caterpillar did all of this damage, him and his friends. It wasn't just that one, but he had some friends with him. So that's an example, again, of another way that we can study insects and why it's so important. They can also be household pests. So these can get in our homes. So cockroaches and termites. Again, I mentioned termites earlier can eat the wood in our houses, and that's a problem. So we want to control them as well. They can also transmit diseases. So those mosquitoes that are biting us in some parts of the world, they carry very deadly diseases. And so we want to stop that as well. Stop that transmission of that disease, at least. The disease is the mosquito isn't actually the one that is killing the people. It's actually the disease that they carry. So they're really good at transmitting it to different people. And so that's the problem with the mosquitoes there. It's not the mosquito itself. It's the plasmodium is what we call it, that's inside their gut and that they actually inject into people when they bite them. They also are great biological control agents. So the good bugs eat the bad bugs. So here you have an example of a praying mantis eating a moth. You probably already know of the ladybug that eats the aphids. I put one up here in the corner, not an insect eating another insect, but a spider that also is important in biological control. But the spider is not an insect, right? Got 8 legs instead of those 6. We learned, and 2 body parts instead of 3. And they also produce really useful things. So I mentioned the honey, but the wax we also use. We also use the silk, and they're a great source of protein. So in a lot of places around the world, insects are a really important part of people's diet. And so you can see a meal that's been prepared here. I've actually eaten some insects, and they are yummy and tasty and delicious. And so it's just kind of a ick factor, I think, that we have in a lot of cultures, that we don't think of insects as good protein, but they are great for protein. And they also are great for other insects, as I mentioned, for biological control, but also lizards and birds and bats and all kinds of other organisms rely on insects as part of their food supply. And they're just super cool. They're beautiful. They're come in small sizes and large sizes and different colors and shapes. And so they are just amazing in the diversity of things that you get to work with and which ones you get to work with. So from an insect conservation standpoint, as Jesse mentioned earlier in this show, 70 to 80% of all the known animals on the planet are insects. So insects are by far the most abundant animals on the planet. They are more than, if you combine all the elephants, all the tigers, all the mammals, there are more insects than all of those combined. So, and those are only the ones we know about. There are still people out searching for new and describing new insects every single day. And so we keep adding to the number of species that we know because there's so many that we still haven't even discovered. So some of them are in the ground, some of them are on the trees. They occur in all kinds of different habitats. And so you have to look really closely. But we're finding new ones all the time, which I think is super cool. It's not many fields that you can go and say, hey, I found a new undescribed thing that no one else has ever seen before. But insects, you still can. So what are some things that you could do if you want to enjoy insects a bit more and learn a bit more? You can go on an insect safari in your neighborhood. I love doing this. I take my dog out for a walk every evening. And while we're on our walk, I oftentimes will find insects just in my own neighborhood, either crawling across the sidewalk or on a tree, or I can hear them sometimes. During the summer, cicadas are very, very loud. And so I can hear them sometimes, but a lot of times we'll see them on either plants or, like I said, just walking across the sidewalk. So you can do the same. See how many insects you can identify while you're walking around your neighborhood. You could build a solitary bee house. So that is what you see a picture of here. This is a solitary bee house. And all of these things that look like they have little caps on them, those are where baby bees are living. The ones that have like a little hole in them, that's where the baby bee became an adult bee. Remember, they have complete metamorphosis. So there was a larvae in there. And then when it became a pupa, it stayed there. And then when it became an adult, it chewed its way out. And that's what made that hole, is it chewed its way out and it flew away. So these, you can build one of these and see if you can attract some solitary bees into your yard. They are super important pollinators, and they love having little nesting places like this. You can also plant native flowers for bees and butterflies in your yard and other insects. You can create your own insect collection. I had to create insect collections for classes as I was going through school. And oftentimes I'll still bring those out and show those to people when I'm doing outreach like I'm doing today. You can observe insect behavior. So just sit, if you find an ant, watch where it goes, follow it back to its colony and see where it goes. Or, maybe you see a butterfly flitting around and see what it does. See if you can see that proboscis unroll and feed in the flower. If you turn on your lights at night, you'll get moths and coming to your lights, and some probably beetles and other things coming to the lights. If you want to help in conservation, you want to turn those lights off so that they're not disrupted and coming to your light instead of doing what they should be doing out in nature. That also helps migrating birds. So you're helping both the insects and the birds by turning off your lights at night. And then this is an activity that I know has been shared with your teachers. And so if you want to create your own insect, you know exactly how many body parts, how many legs. Now you can make up a story about it and say, what is its name? If you discover a new insect species, you get to name it. That the scientist that finds that gets to name it whatever they'd like. And so you can create an insect name for your insect that you're creating. And then think about, where does it live? What does it eat? What kind of mouth parts does it have? And what kinds of adventures does it have? Where does it go? Does it have an enemy that's trying to eat it and chase it down? Or is it one that is the enemy and trying to chase down another insect and eat it? So there's all kinds of stories that you could make up there for creating and building your own insect. And you can use all kinds of like craft supplies to actually create and build your insect. I had one that was created out of corks that somebody made me, which was fun.
That's very fun. Cool. I hope you take the chance to do this classes. I have sent it along to everybody, and I'll stop talking so that Ronda can finish up the presentation, but it's a super cool activity for everyone.
No, I only have 2 more things. So I just wanted to leave you with this message that even the smallest insect can make a huge difference. And so can you. It doesn't matter how old you are, how big you are, you can make a difference starting today. And then one last thing I have, and I'm going to ask Jesse to take off my screen so that I can pull out a friend that I brought with me. So another thing that you can do at home is find a jar, a big jar, drill some holes, have mom and dad help you poke some holes in the lid. Now you have a great insect container. So you can actually capture one and grow it and see what you have. So I wanted to share one that I found on my walk. So I was on my insect safari in my neighborhood and I found this one and I had to just bring it home long enough to share it with you because it is so cool.
Super, super cool. Here he is. Oh, look at it.
So look at how massive. Look at my finger. This is my finger. He's almost as big as my finger. And so beautiful. I think that they're just so cool. So I wanted to share this. This will actually turn into a moth. It's a very big, beautiful moth is what it will turn into. But it also makes a very beautiful caterpillar.
Really beautiful, like an unusually beautiful caterpillar. Very nice. Thank you, Ron.
Yes. So I brought my friend with me. You know,
awesome.
Can't do one without a live insect.
I've got to find some friends to have. I have a dog that might enter into the broadcast.
I have one of those too.
Perfect. Yeah. Oh, well, thank you for such a deep dive on insects, some of your career, some of their cool traits, and why we should value them. Always special having you on. I really, really appreciate it. We're going to dive in with questions in just a few minutes, but I do want to start with our Kahoot. So if you want to play along with 4 quick questions as a class, as individuals, if you don't want to sign in, you just want to yell out the answers, that's totally fine too. But I'm going to pull this up. And for those who are new to Kahoot, the faster you answer, the more points you get. And what you win is Rhonda and I's everlasting respect. So feel free to chime in again as a class. That's fantastic. We're going to get underway in just a second. So you got 2 classes in so far, which is great. Oh, more coming in. Awesome, awesome, awesome. And then we're going to dive in with questions. Mrs. Penfold's class, you guys are going to be first. We'll head to our Miami classes, Bayside Public School. Welcome in, and we'll have you guys on right after that as well. But let's dive in and do this thing. Here we go. All right. 3, 2, 1. Drum roll, please. Question 1. There are about 6,000 kinds of mammal. So like us, rodents, primates, bats. How many kinds of insect are there? Are there 6,000 kinds of bug, 10,000, 50,000, or over 1 million kinds of insect? What do you think?
I know.
Yeah, I bet you do. We talked about this, that 70 to 80% of all species on this planet are insects. So where does that put us? How many kinds of animal are there in the world? Yes, over 1 million. Basically, every time we go into a forest and look around, we find new species, not just individuals, new entire species of insect that we did not know existed, which is absolutely mind-blowing. Very, very cool. All right. On to question 2. Decisive Lemming has a lead. True or false for question 2? These monuments were made by insects. What do we think? Ooh, they look like stone. It looks like something that like a glacier dropped somewhere. What do we think? Have you ever seen these in person?
I saw the one that I put in the that's actually a picture I took. So
sorry. These are specifically in the Australian bush, and yes, they are made by insects. Termite mounds that are like 6-7 feet tall, bigger in some cases, with their own like air conditioning system inside that they designed themselves, and they're all blind. Like, it's just amazing that creatures can make something like that. All right. Fearless Coyote takes our lead. We're down to the wire. 2 more questions. Some ants farm aphids like cows. So just in the same way that we have chickens and pigs and cows as livestock, do some ants farm aphids? The picture might give it away. What do we think? I've seen this live, and it's really cool.
I have actually worked with ants in my past and also have seen this, and it is super cool.
It's so weird. It's so awesome to see. Okay, let's see what our audience says. Yes, true. Ants can be farmers. They're pretty much anything that people do, you will find somewhere in the insect kingdom. All right. Fearless Coyote has a narrow lead over Genius Firefly and Magnetic Dog. Going to our final question. This is a multi-select, so it's more than one answer. Could be all 4, could be 2.
Tricky.
Which of these are real? Centipedes that hunt bats, ants with underground nests as big as human houses, spiders that fly around the world on silk strands, or scorpions that glow in ultraviolet light? What do we think? You can pick a few. You can pick all 4. Let's see. 7 answers in. Get those answers in. And it doesn't matter if you don't win. It's just fun to play along. They are all real. All of those. I my wife and I have written like a children's story about spiders that fly around the world on silk strands, and they are very, very cool. You can find them on any remote island in the middle of the Pacific Ocean because they fly on the breezes around this planet. Decisive Lemming is third. Second is Genius Firefly. And first, for all the marbles, drum roll please, everybody, is Fearless Coyote. Way to go, guys. If you are any of those folks, let us know who you are in the chat, and thanks for playing along. And now that we've asked you some questions, you have the chance to ask your own questions of Dr. Hamm. So, Mrs. Penfold's class, we're heading to Ontario first. Come on in and take us away with our first question. Hey, guys. Hey. Hi. Do we have a question about bugs? Ooh, no pressure. We can come back. Oh, yeah, go for it.
Easton, go up.
How many days does it take a butterfly from an egg to a real adult?
Sweet question.
Man, you put me on the spot, and that's a really hard one to answer because a lot of times it depends on the type of butterfly. So it also depends on the temperature that it is outside, or if we're rearing them inside. So sometimes we can bring caterpillars inside and we can give them the perfect conditions. And so we know exactly how long it can take. So from an egg to a larva, and then usually there are multiple larval stages. So they molt anywhere from 3 to 5 times usually before they go into their chrysalis. And then that becomes an adult. So I really can't give you an answer because it depends is the answer. And I know that's not a very satisfying answer.
It's a great answer.
It's kind of depends on the species, and it depends on weather and wind, and is it cold outside or is it hot outside? So.
There's a lot of nuance in science, and stumping the expert is one of the great joys of exploring by the seat of your pants. So if you ever get the chance, Mrs. Penfold's class, because I know where you are, if you go down to Niagara, they've got an amazing butterfly conservatory, and they've got like hundreds of different kinds with all different chrysalises, and you can ask the experts there too, because again, it does depend, and that's a very controlled environment, but really, really special to see a chrysalis, and especially a butterfly or moth coming out of one in person. It's mind-blowing.
Yes.
Very cool.
Also one in Montreal, if that happens to be in your area.
Yes, the Biodome. Cool.
Yes.
Well, we're going to head down to Miami. Mrs. Ramos' class, third graders, come on in, unmute your mic. It's so nice to have you in. Welcome to the broadcast. Hey, guys. Hi.
Wait, I go down?
What's your question?
How many days can a spider live?
Ooh.
Oh, so some spiders live for a long time, and some don't live for very long. So again, my answers are very depends on the kind of spider, right? So you've got little tiny spiders like jumping spiders, and then you have really big spiders like the Goliath bird eater that is like the size of a dinner plate. And so they vary. So it depends on what they're eating. Some of them, a lot of them don't live. If they're in captivity, they'll live a lot longer because there's not something else trying to eat them, right?
Yep.
But if they live in the wild, most things don't get to the age that they could because there's diseases and there's other things that want to eat them, or they get injured somehow. And so, yeah, sorry, I don't have an actual number for you.
I have never had this question before in an entomology program. And so I looked up the longest lived spider. So in captivity, it's over 40 years, which is ridiculous. I know some termites and big ants can live over 20. And I thought that was outlandish and crazy because usually tiny things don't live very long. It's like a general broad strokes thing in the natural kingdom that's true. So that's a very cool question. Thanks, guys. Jeez.
Yeah.
All right. Miss Avila's class.
Give me one I can answer.
Yeah. This is great. Listen, I love questions like this because it highlights that, again, we're always learning things in science. We had a sloth program the other day, and no one knows how long sloths live. We've never tracked one from birth to death in the wild ever. So I love questions that, again, stump the expert.
And the experts are always learning, too. You never stop learning.
That's the whole joy of science. Welcome in, Miss Avila's class.
Hey. Do you know what a titan beetle is? Titan beetles die only if they lose their energy because they die because they eat all they can in their larva form, and they don't even have a digestive system when they grow up.
Way to do some awesome research. Have you seen a titan beetle, Rhonda?
I have not. No, but I do know that there are a number of different insects that when they emerge, they don't even have mouth parts because when they're adults, their only goal is to mate, lay eggs. And so they don't bother with feeding once they become an adult. Like you said, they eat everything they can as a larva. When they emerge as an adult, they have a very short life cycle as an adult. And so their only goal is to make the next generation of insects, and so they don't even have mouth parts that are formed.
So weird and cool. And I mean, if you really think about it, like imagine if people were like that. Like it's so odd, it's so foreign to our experience as the animals that sort of we know and love and our pets and everything else. So I love when we get questions like that. And way to do a bunch of research. That was awesome. Oh.
Yeah, thanks for educating me on that species.
Yeah. All right, Ms. Ivel's class, Bayside. I know you came in a little late, but if you have any questions on insects, I'm happy to come in and flick on your mic. Come on in, take us away. Hey guys.
Hello. How do people find about insects even though they're so small?
Ooh, how do we research to find them? Yeah.
Yeah. So depending on the type of insect, again, some are really big and we can use that. Some are really small, but I have a lot of tools that I use. And actually, I'll have to send it to Jesse. There's actually a video of me showing you how to use these different tools that I have. And so one of those tools is a sweep net. So it's basically a net on a pole. And I walk through the grass and I swing it back and forth and I knock all the insects off into my net. And then I can open it up and look and see what kinds of insects. I might, if you can give me 2 seconds, I might be able to find a picture on my computer.
Ooh, you play around with that. While you're doing that, I will highlight just in general for any classes that might be keen. This is just part 2 of a 10-part series this week with the coolest if-then ambassadors of all time. So I really encourage you, check that out. We've got 8 other broadcasts coming, including one right after today's with Dr. Gracie Ermy. She's awesome. And Rhonda's found a great picture, so I'm going to take it back to her. Oh, she pressed the wrong button and she disappeared entirely. So we're going to have Rhonda back in a second, hopefully. That's funny. But I will highlight, again, that ambassadors page, 10 programs. This one will be on our YouTube channel as well. And then if you really want to check out the greatest campaign highlighting amazing women in science, technology, engineering, and math in the world, I can't encourage you enough to check out ifthenshecan.org. It is our 4th series with them. They do such amazing work to showcase and celebrate some of the coolest people on planet Earth. It's all right there. And they've got some great social media pages as well. I'm going to send our link just to make sure to Rhonda really quick and see if we can get her back in. Sorry that she cut out there for a second, but I do want to note too, if you have extra bug questions after this broadcast is done, you can send them to me at our Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants email, and we will absolutely pass them along to her. She's more than happy to take extra questions after the broadcast is done. So fingers crossed we get her back in a second. Not often that happens. I will note too, on the Ambassador series, we've got Gracie Ermy coming next. She's going to talk about coding to save the world. We've got quite a few deep sea divers, some really cool underwater explorations, including things on the absolute bottom of the sea floor. So some really, really cool stuff with Tammy Goulet, Emily and Amber from Rigs to Reefs coming up this week. In general, it's going to be a very, very special series. And then we've got a National Geographic world-class photographer, Dr. Jen Adler, to wrap up the series on Friday. Rhonda's back. The button has been unpressed.
I'm sorry.
You had the picture up and everything. I'm like, I'm going back. There it is. Oh no. That's so funny.
Did. I was like, oh.
You can send the picture to them later.
Okay. I was like, shoot, I'm sharing. Oh no, I'm not. I just
so funny.
Myself.
This is the joy of virtual broadcast, kids, that something should go a little wrong. Otherwise, it's no fun. I will encourage you, though, the one nice thing about studying insects is that you can literally go with a big net in a field and catch them. And it's wild and a lot of fun. I've had the chance to do it in person. And again, if you go in your own explorations, ideally, you're just looking for bugs. You're seeing what lives near you. But if you do get the chance to catch one or see one up close, they are really, really special. And there's our picture in the field with the bug net. Very cool. Thank you, Rhonda.
That is one of the type of nets. We have actually what's called a beat sheet that looks like a flat sheet. And you actually put it underneath a tree, and then you can kind of knock on the leaves and knock those off onto the sheet. So that helps you see them. Another way to capture insects and to figure out what you have is a sheet that you put up with a light behind it at nighttime, and you get the night flying insects coming and landing on that sheet. All kinds of ways that we look for and discover new insects is by putting all these different traps out. We have a pitfall trap where we bury it in the ground and they like walk along and they fall in. So that we can see what's on the ground.
I was in Costa Rica over the summer and I saw one of the white sheets lit up at night, and like hundreds and hundreds of giant and weird and cool things were on that sheet. It's one of the coolest things I've ever seen live in person. And just because you mentioned pitfall traps, I'm going to highlight something to kids that might never have heard of this before. Everyone should look up an antlion when you're done this broadcast, because they do that themselves and they hunt things that fall into their traps. And they're one of the coolest, freakiest things in all of nature. And if they were really big, they'd be the scariest things on earth. But to ants, they are the scariest thing on earth, and everyone should look them up. They're super neat. Awesome.
They sit in the bottom of a hole, and those, remember me talking about mouth parts? They have mandibles. And so they sit at the bottom of the hole with their mouth parts open, and when an ant falls in, it
pull down.
Sure.
Oh, very cool. We're going to do a whole other round of questions. So Mrs. Penfold's class, we're going to head back to you guys. YouTubers, feel free to chime in as well, but take us away, guys. Hey.
What's the biggest bug in the world?
Ooh.
Oh, that's a good question. So there's a couple ways to answer that, because there's the heaviest and then there is the longest, or the biggest kind of lengthwise. So stick insects can get really long. So that's the longest insect. And then I'm pretty sure it's a Goliath beetle that is the heaviest. So they're a big beetle and they're very dense and they don't fly very well because they're so heavy, but they can fly. But short distances, and they look kind of goofy doing it because they're not very good. But yeah.
Throwing some shade at our Goliath beetle friend. Very nice. Thank you for that. Miss Avila's class, come on in and take us away. Hey, guys.
I'm Crystal. Sorry, I'm sorry.
Take your time. No worry at all. Hi, Crystal.
What's your favorite insect?
Oh, that's a great
No
question.
pressure.
My favorite insect, I have two answers. My favorite insect to study is the housefly. So I did a lot of work for my PhD to get my PhD on houseflies. So that was the first slide that I shared that had all those like kind of things lined up, and some were black and some were brown. Those were all houseflies. And so there were different genetics. So I was looking at the genes inside that then make the color. So whether they're black or brown, or they have yellow eyes or red eyes, I was looking at genetics around the housefly. So that's my favorite one to study. My favorite one that just I think is super cool is one of the ones that I showed you on one of the very first slides, that leaf insect. So leaf insect is my favorite. And I love the fact that they look like a leaf. If you get a chance to ever see one, look at the edges of them really closely, because sometimes they're kind of brown. And that's because leaves, when they are kind of, older leaves, they have little brown crispy bits to them. And so does the insect. It copies that so that their camouflage is so good. The other thing that they do is their behavior is like a leaf. So when you think of a leaf out on a tree, does it always stay still?
No.
Right? Because there's wind. And so when the wind is there, it moves a little bit. And the insects do the same thing. They sway a bit like they're a leaf blowing in the wind. So their behavior, and they move slow so that you don't see them necessarily moving. And so I think between the way they look and their behavior, they're my favorite.
Pretty cool answer. We always have students ask what people's favorite animal is in their group, and we almost never get an answer to this because it's a really hard question. And that was a beautiful answer with lots of great detail. Very cool.
I have favorites.
Miss Ramos' class, we're coming to you, and then we'll wrap up with Bayside in a minute. This has been so much fun, everybody. Coming back in, and Claude Pepper, welcome in. Hey.
Which insect is the dangerous insect?
The most dangerous insect. What should we be worried about, Rhonda?
Ooh. Yeah, so the deadliest animal on the planet is the mosquito, but only because it carries the disease inside it. So the mosquito itself, remember me saying that the mosquito itself isn't really that dangerous. It's because it has the disease inside it. So if we could somehow, and we're working on this, scientists are working to try to figure out how can we make sure that that disease doesn't get inside the mosquito, or that it can't get outside the mosquito. So there's two different ways that we can kind of tackle that problem, right? So that's what science is all about. We see a problem, and the problem is that this mosquito bite with this plasmodium makes people sick. So that's the problem we want to answer. And there's different ways that we can attack that. One is keep it out of the mosquito. Two is once it gets in the mosquito, keep it in the mosquito so it doesn't get into the people. And that's the easiest one to work on, actually. And so people are working on that. But the deadliest insect is the mosquito, because it carries those diseases, and it carries a lot of different diseases that can harm people.
Yep. I love when we get this question. It's really important for classes to know. And again, in Canada and the US, very unlikely you're ever going to get a dangerous disease from a mosquito. We've done a great job of sort of keeping right. But when you travel elsewhere in the world, quite often you'll need to get vaccines to make sure that you aren't impacted by mosquitoes. I've had to get vaccines for mosquito-transmitted diseases many times. So it's something that if you do like international travel, if you get the chance to do that, keep an eye out for that. Thanks, Rhonda.
And like you, I had to take malaria pills. I was recently doing some international travel myself and had to take malaria pills so that I didn't get malaria in the place that I was from.
No fun to get malaria. That's a lesson from all explorers in the world.
Yes.
All right, we're going to have one more question. This has been so much fun. Thank you for your curiosity, everyone. And please do email me any extra questions. We'll pass them along and you can get them answered after the fact. But Bayside, come on in for one final query. Hey, guys.
Okay, Nate, you're up. Okay.
How many?
Yep.
Yeah.
How much do ants eat a day?
Ooh.
Oh my gosh. How much do ants eat a day? Well, so an individual ant is not going to eat that much. But the thing with ants is they live in a colony. And so they're kind of like a big family and they share all their resources. And so the ant will actually bring the food back and then everybody gets their fair share. So again, a not very satisfying answer, but it depends on the size of the colony. So if it's a young, new colony, there aren't that many people, so they don't need that much food. But as they grow and they produce more ants and more ants, they need more. So just like if you think about a small town or a large city, right, we're going to need different types of inputs. And so that is additional food. And so same thing with ants. They're going to need more. They also need depends on the type of ant. So some ants really like nectar sources. So they like sweet, sugary things. So that was the example that Jesse showed us actually of those ants becoming farmers and tending the aphids. They are actually drinking the sap or the honeydew that those aphids produce. And that's what their food source is. Other insects prefer more proteins, and so they're eating other insects. So like this big fat juicy caterpillar that I saw, if they saw that walking down the sidewalk, that colony might swarm that and take it back to their colony for food. And so different insects eat different things, and depending on the size of the colony, they need more or less food.
Yeah, super, super cool. You highlighted how many species of insect there are earlier. I've heard that, again, if you weighed all the ants in like the Amazon rainforest, they outweigh all the birds, all the mammals, everything. Like there's more weight of them, even though they're so tiny. So like we're talking an impact on the ecosystem that's way bigger than the other animals because they just need that much food to fuel their bodies. So I love when we get queries like this that are challenging, complicated, but give you a sense of the scale of the insect realm. It's very, very neat. Rhonda, time flies and you're having fun. So we're going to wrap up in a minute and bring in all our kids to say thank you and farewell. But before we do, is there any final message you want to leave our kids with today?
Keep exploring. This is exploring by the seat of your pants. We do that every day. Scientists do that every day. And don't stop asking those crazy questions that you think maybe are, I don't know, whatever. Because it's those crazy questions that lead us to our next inventions, our next exploration, our next discovery, the next question.
No better message than that. Thank you so much. And for tying in our title as an organization too in there. I appreciate it immensely. As you know from joining us before, what we're going to do is bring in all our classes to say thank you and farewell. Thank you so much, classes. You guys have been an amazing group today. Great questions all around. And I hope you'll join us for more in our Ambassador series in the week to come. But before we wrap up, Mrs. Penfold's class, Ms. Ramos' class, Ms. Avila's class, Bayside Public School, thank you so much, everybody.